Yeah, I obviously first off, congrats on your first Oscar nod. Has it sunk in yet? I mean, such a successful career, over spanning over 3 decades. Like this is a huge moment for you. Like it's hard to put into words, but
Yeah, I would say, I think it sunk in actually this past weekend when we won two British Academy Awards for Best Picture and Outstanding British Picture. I mean, did not expect it. And um, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, this is real. I think you go through it and you watch, accolades go to like your colleagues and friends and other producers, and it's like it's very cool, and you're like, wow, it is truly a win to be nominated for an Oscar. Like I'm good. I consider a winner. Um, but then when we won the BAFTA, it suddenly felt like, oh, we actually could win an Oscar too, and that made it feel a lot more real. And also, this makes this last week and a half really fun to feel like you're in a race. And
yeah,
whether again, same thing, whether win or not, I truly feel like, and I'm not being disingenuous. It is a win to be nominated, and I'm like thrilled. It's also fun to be in a race.
that's awesome. I mean, with that mentality in mind, which I was, I'm an old school kind of entertainment reporter, so we always ask the nominees like, "How'd you celebrate?" Seems like you're holding off till after the Oscars, maybe. Like it hasn't sunk in, hasn't seemed real, and just maybe was there any kind of special, celebration, after the nominees or nah?
I mean, it's pretty hectic, right? So we're there's the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards and the PGA Awards and the DGA Awards and the BAFTAs. And then so there's a lot of things that, and really wonderful, the AFI luncheon, which was probably my favorite because it's not an award. It's just like gathering of everybody to say, you guys are great. And we all get to applaud for each other. But, and be in the room and hang out and chat with Jodie Foster and Harrison Ford and, my personal, uh, idols who I'm like just fanning over, and it's like just fun. But we're all able, like, I've never had a better intro than to say, really nice to meet you. I'm the producer of Conclave, and they know my film.
Wow.
And that's a great, way rather than just go, I'm a real fan. And then I say I'm a real fan. That has all been, it's like been this 6 week long celebration.
Hmm.
Um, and then in a stroke of um, genius, I plan to have my birthday the day after the Oscars. My birthday is March 3rd. So I've been telling, my plan is that if we win, I'm going to keep partying all night into my birthday. And if we lose, I'm going to keep partying all night into my birthday.
That's awesome. I love that.
So that's the plan.
And before we get into how like the movie came together, I always like to with someone with your esteem and your accomplishments, I'd love to kind of go back to the beginning, um, really quick. Like, how did you get into the film industry? Was that something you always knew, from an early age? Or I always love hearing these stories of kind of like a career origin story. Like, how did that all come about for you?
I was a psychology major and a computer science engineering minor. So that's clearly the path towards filmmaking. Um, and then I decided I wanted to be an actor. And my first job was not as an actor; it was as a production assistant on a movie called The House on Carroll Street, which was I was it was 1986, so because I'm very old, and um, and my job was getting coffee, driving. I got to drive Kelly McGillis around for a couple weeks. That
Oh,
was a thrill. She was right off of Top Gun, and I was like 23. And I was like, this is the best job in the world. And then also I was like a PA driver for the director. His name was Peter Yates, who was a lovely human and a great director. And I just, I tell a story about, I call it my coffee story, which I had told to my kids and tell to people, you can impress people and by doing the worst job really well. Doesn't
mm,
matter what the job is. And any job worth doing is worth doing well. And I got coffee and I did it. I got coffee well. I brought it back right. I gave it to the right people. It was still hot. Um, and there were some people who were like, this is so beneath me. And the next job, they're looking to me to bring on to the next job because the other guy couldn't even get coffee right. So I liked the business. I did try to keep acting for a few years. I was in a movie called Mississippi Burning.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
I was the picture car coordinator in that movie. I had 300 cars, trucks, motorcycles, hearses, buses, every kind of earth mover that you can find. And I bugged the director, Alan Parker, almost every day until he finally put me in the movie as a reporter. And then I was like, I like this, but I don't live for this. And I think that acting is a really hard job. And if you can live without acting, I think you really should. Because it's really, there is a very common thread between acting and producing. Both actors and producers need to be immune to rejection. Um, uh, but I think actors have it worse. And I felt like producing could be really interesting to me, and I sort of moved in that direction. But I've done every job in between.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, that's I was reading the production notes and your bio, and like I said, it's just beyond impressive. And I love hearing that's just a great story. Like I'm gonna walk away from that. Not that it's I'm what I think is important, but I just it's great to kind of like learn that about you. And speaking of the production notes, obviously it does seem like this movie was the perfect storm of like everything positive happening from like the director to you coming on board to the cast. And how do you remember that all happening? Because it does feel like it was almost like kismet, like it was meant to happen, and you know all the right pieces came into play. Unless I'm totally mistaken, it was
Well,
not
I
that
mean,
way.
I think anytime a movie actually gets made, it's a minor miracle because it's really hard to make a movie. But you have to go, my fellow producer, Tessa Ross, really is the engine that drove this forward. She optioned the book from Robert Harris after reading 3 chapters in 2016. She brought on Peter Strawn, who had written Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, to write the screenplay. He turned in a brilliant first draft. That went to Edward Berger, who he hadn't done All Quiet at the time. He had done Patrick Melrose, which is fascinating. And she really put those pieces together. But I got to get aboard a real moving train because when I got there, it had that and Rafe. And then my company, I'm not there anymore. The company I was with called Film Nation Entertainment came aboard to finance the movie with Indian Paintbrush and to do international sales. And I was brought on to produce for Film Nation. So that's a little over 3 years ago that I got involved. And then, had to go to Rome and live there for 6 months. Poor me.
So terrible.
But it was, amazing to like go and make this movie in Rome. Just phenomenal. And, build the Sistine Chapel, which, which one does. So it was an amazing experience. But yeah, I had the blessing, if you will, since we're talking about Conclave, of getting involved with this when, the amazing pieces were together. But then what Edward Berger did was he had a great vision. He's so creative, and he took what were all these beautiful ingredients were, and made the best version of this movie that I think is possible. And you don't always get to do that. You often have great ingredients, but you don't always make the best version.
And you mentioned obviously the process and it being amazing and being in Rome and doing this. Was there a I mean, this is a really tough and might come off glib question. Was there a feeling during the production that this is something special? Like it's either it seems to be like usually the answer to that is either yes or no, and then a lot of times like it's like hey, you don't know what you're getting while you're putting this stuff together. It's such a long process, but sometimes someone has like a feeling of like, oh, this is something special and unique that we're going to see later on.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at the cast that we had together, right? Obviously Ray Fiennes, who's brilliant, and Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, Isabella Rossellini, Sergio Castellito, amazing Italian actor, and Bruno Byrne, and I mean Lucian Masmati. It was like every performance was really, really good and really convincing, and everybody's got different styles, but as you're watching every moment, you're going, we're getting some beautiful stuff. So like I think we all felt the performances were wonderful and we're going to support the movie. Then the question is, we wanted a thriller, not a drama. We didn't want a procedural. And we vote a lot. We talk a lot and we vote a lot. There's not a lot that happens other than talking and voting. Um, And so I think it's the brilliance of the script and then Edward Berger's vision of how to put that together, and our editor Nick Emerson working with Edward in terms of the timing and just like how long you hold on a shot and how cutty it is. It's not very cutty. We have a lot of long shots where we stay on one person, but to make all of that a thriller, I think was what we didn't. You can't know is going to work while you just get the ingredients. You know it could, And then you make the movie that you want to make and you're excited by it, and then have the audience accept it and celebrate it. That's the other miracle because
Yeah.
a lot of really good movies that nobody sees.
Yeah. And then I know we're running out of time, so I want to wrap up with, you mentioned obviously Film Nation parting ways. Like, what's next for you? I'd love to get your take on that. Like, unless you're not even thinking about that yet, because you're still in the celebration of this.
No, no, it's I had a wonderful like 12 years at Filmation. They were a great home for me. Um, I also wasn't traveling all that much. My kids were younger, and then about 4 years ago, when my kids went to college, um, I started producing for Filmation. I produced The Good Nurse for them, and I had produced other films. I mean, I was a producer on Arrival, and
Yeah.
to go to set and be the producer again. Um, and then after The Good Nurse, I came back. I was like, I really, really want to produce more. And the Film Nation was like, that's great. And you did a wonderful job. And we really need an executive. So we decided that, we would figure out an exit. And Conclave was my last film for them, which is a great film to finish on. And I still work out of the offices there. We have a wonderful relationship. So I'm currently working on a film called I Love Boosters. That's Boots Riley, who did Sorry to Bother You and
Yeah.
Virgo for Amazon. This is his second film, and it's amazing and bonkers. It's Kiki Palmer and Demi Moore and Taylor Page, Naomi Yaki, Isa Gonzalez, Don Cheadle, Will Poulter. I mean, it's just a fun cast and a fun movie. So we're deep into post on that for my friends over at Rider Pictures and Neon, and that's very cool. And then I've got two independents that I'm trying to put together. One about Kent State, the killings of Kent State in the 1970s, 1970 specifically, and then another beautiful little project called Clingstone. But after the Oscars, I will go back to being an unemployed producer, and I'll figure out what's next then.